And welcome to the Community Development and Transportation Committee meeting for June 27, 2023. Elected body present, Mayor Kurt Wilson, Councilmember Christine Hall, Councilmember Michael Palermo, Councilmember G. Lee Hills, Councilmember William Morthland, as well as Executive Assistant to the Council, Michelle Miller, and City Attorney David Davidson. I'm Randy Knight, the City Administrator. The purpose of committee meetings are for the city departments to convey information to mayor and city council and discuss initiatives listed on the published agenda. By ordinance, the committee consists of the mayor and members of city council and the city administrator, and the city administrator serves as chair of committee meetings. This is a public meeting, but not a public hearing. Therefore, while members of the public are certainly welcome to attend, we do not generally take comments from the public unless specifically authorized by mayor and council. Public comments or questions are received at regular city council meetings on the second and fourth Monday of each month and fifth Monday in open forum. We do encourage citizens to engage our online platforms, and if you have any questions or need information, we ask that you contact the staff talent of the city to provide that information to you. In addition, if you have any service requests or need to report a concern, we certainly highly recommend utilizing the City of Roswell app and the web service portal, and we encourage everyone to view our calendar of events at roswell365.com. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the Community Development and Transportation Committee meeting for May 23rd, 2023. We'll entertain a motion. Motion by Councilmember Hills. Second by Councilmember Morthland. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. The first item under community development, item number 2, consideration of the proposed selection for the Unified Development Code update, RFP number 23-153-E. Mr. Jason Gaines.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Knight, and good evening. This item before you is to consider bringing to next council agenda the matter of the results of the RFP solicitation for updating and cleaning up the Unified Development Code. This RFP was issued back in early May, May 4th to be exact. The scope was focused on reorganization, identifying and addressing redundancies and conflicts, updating definitions and terminology, and providing more visual representations of the concepts within the UDC in order to make it easier to use. With that, we received 2 responses to the RFP, which were due on June 2nd. And after review, deliberation amongst the committee, as well as interviews with the 2 responding firms, the committee is recommending that the contract be awarded to the Kendrick-Keast Collaborative. This is based on the quality of their response and their demonstrated ability to complete the project per the specs within the RFP document and the desired outcomes. In addition to the baseline proposal, there were options to submit alternate proposals to round out their work, so to speak. There are 2 alternate proposals that Kendrick-Keast recommended or put forth that we are recommending to bring forward with their baseline work. That's alternate proposal B, which is an update to the city design guidelines, as well as alternate proposal D, which is the implementation of Encode Plus, which is an online code hosting solution that is complementary to MuniCode and provides, again, a more graphical or visual representation of the concepts put forward within the UDC documents. As far as the financial impact is concerned, $300,000 was previously allocated in capital funds from fiscal year 22, which was actually carried over from another previous fiscal year. And the fee, the associated with this work, including the baseline proposal and the 2 alternate proposals being recommended by the committee, is a total of $192,602. The baseline, just the initial work asked for within the RFP scope, not including the 2 alternate proposals, comes up to an amount of $133,282. So again, the committee recommends the selection of Kendrick Keys Collaborative for the baseline proposal and alternate proposals B and D for a total of $192,602. And the ask here is for this, of course, to go to the council agenda, and there, the ask would be to allow us to enter into negotiations with Kendrick Keys not to exceed that maximum amount. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines. Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton. I'm comfortable with staff's recommendation of the recommended vendor from the RFP. So that's something I certainly am supportive. I lean towards actually, though, going for the more the true baseline, because as we kind of started this process and as we discussed, really the goal is really just to take, we have our existing code. It's to just make it as simple as possible and as streamlined as possible, not changing any of the content. So obviously there have been a lot of protections added in the last 8 years, so not looking to change any of those. So it should be very straightforward. And frankly, I'd look, and frankly, I feel there's a lot of people that actively do use MuniCode where they're able to find what they need. Of course, you can access that through roswellgov.com, and that's where I think it's just that we should go for the baseline and really push them to really speed it up, because it's really not rocket science what we're asking them to do. It's really just a matter of streamlining it, making it more clear, and that's kind of the direction I'd like to go, and get really some fast results for the residents.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilmember Hills, and I'll come to Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton. Is this company also equipped to do the type of thing that we're proposing maybe next year, to really dig deep in the details? Is this sort of could this be considered a precursor also for their compatibility for what we'd like to do?
I think that's within their capability, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hall, let's all first.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton. And I agree with Councilmember Palermo on doing the basic, because I liken this to what we want to do with our website. And basically, it's just redirecting. The content is there, and all we're doing is basically rethinking of making it easy for the consumer. So you click to what you want to do, and you basically get there. And I think the base will get us there.
Councilmember Palermo.
Yeah, and of course, I certainly agree with what Councilmember Hall had to say. I also actually really agree with Councilmember Hills and want to expand on my comments. By me saying I'm not interested in the moment on those potential alternates, it does not mean I'm never interested in them. But I'd say right now, I'd really like, we haven't worked with this firm. We've certainly seen so many issues with some consultants that are in this similar field. I'd really feel more comfortable if we had them come in for the baseline, and then depending on how that goes, and I hope it would be very successful and productive, then of course in the future we look at adding other things we want, whether it's with what they've proposed here, or are there other opportunities for just additional streamlining and ease for our residents.
Mayor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. First of all, congratulations to Lenore Bromberg, graduate today of North Fulton Leadership through the Greater North Fulton Chamber of Commerce, and 9-month program with a lot of other leaders in North Fulton County, and thank you for representing the city of Roswell, Lenore. And we look forward, obviously, to either Jackie or Mr. Gaines doing it this upcoming year. I think they both have volunteered with a great deal of exuberance.
Surprise volunteer.
Yes.
Voluntold.
I have a question. So I'm looking at packet page 34 in the council committee's packet, and it shows the project timeline as currently as 8 months. So I think the question I'd have, Mike and Christine, is do you have a suggested timeline that you would like to suggest to the committee, and is it doable for community development and the vendor to execute. So is there a timeline out there you'd like to suggest?
Councilmember Palermo, I believe we have a correction there. I'm glad you raised the question,
Yeah,
Mayor
this
Wilson.
is a bit surprising to us because, yeah, we had this at 6 months and this firm has indicated a capability of doing it within
That's
6
what I
months.
recall.
Starting, assuming they start early August, finishing no later than early February.
Y'all will have to forgive me, being an old guy and being around a long time. I heard 6 months. It's been my understanding 6 months.
Yes.
But I'm looking at packet page 34.
We see
Right.
it.
And it says 8. Yep.
You're right, that is incorrect. You are right. Thank you, Mayor Wilson. Councilmember Palermo.
And thank you for calling that out. And what I'd actually like to say, and I'd like to understand prior to this being voted on at council, so obviously at committee, we're just voting to move this forward to council. I would like for staff to get with them and see what do they see as just the most efficient timeline that they think they can really offer. Because even from when we originally discussed this and we originally were planning to go out to RFP, I remember we discussed 6 months, but I felt there was even just the expectation that because of how basic this streamlining is, really the expectation of 3 to 4 months. So I'm not going to put in a motion or anything saying 3 to 4 months right now, but I would like for staff to get with them and see what kind of updated timeline we could get from as soon as we vote this in at council, assuming this council chooses to vote it in.
Yes, Mayor Wilson.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mike, just for clarification, if community development comes back, if Mr. Gaines and his team comes back in consultation with the vendor, and they say 90 days, would that be acceptable?
I think that would certainly, increase the optimism they should have in council voting for this, or at least for a liaison making a vote for it.
So just, I'm trying to give some clarity
Yes.
to our leadership team. If they came back and said 120 days, would that be an acceptable time period?
That would still be a good amount faster than the 6 months we heard, and probably line up better with what we discussed when we first went out to RFP.
And if they came back and said 150 days, would that be acceptable?
Better than 180 days.
So 90 to 120 days is really what you're looking for as an outlier?
Yes, I'd really like them to understand why they wouldn't be able to do it in 90 to 120 days. If that's something I'd like to know at the council vote.
Mayor Wilson.
Jason, is that something that's doable?
I don't have a firm answer to that, but it's definitely something that we'll reach back out to the vendor and get clarity on. You know, we can definitely find out.
Okay. Sounds like it's very important to Councilmember Palermo and Councilmember Hall that they got a 90 to 120 days. And it's,
We'll stress that to the vendor.
okay, very good. Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Morthland.
Yeah, I think we've pretty much gone full circle on all the Q&A here, but just piggybacking off of what we went through last night, when is the last time that we did a proposal for the UDC? When did have we put that out, how many years ago? 2012?
2012, when it went out, it was done in 2014.
Okay, so this time.
Would you like to see the video of the council meeting that night?
All right. Councilmember Palermo.
And in all fairness, for the UDC, it was a complete overhaul and change of all the rules. So apartments were not allowed in the majority of the city back then. The UDC made it so the apartments were allowed in the majority. They were density limits. It took away the density limits. So it was a complete change, whereas in this, it's not changing anything. It's really just a matter of making it easier and more streamlined for any resident to be able to use and understand.
Mayor Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that is, Michael, that cannot, let me echo your comments, it can't be said enough, is that what's being promulgated here, what's being suggested, is that this is to make the UDC more user-friendly, more readable, more actionable, more legible for more people. That's really what this is. This is not changing any of the form or function of the UDC in its current iteration. As Councilmember Hills suggested, that there's a desire from the council in the future to perhaps deal with that in terms of some complexity, but this particular piece before the committee has nothing to do with it. This just has to do with the not the substance, but how the material is presented.
Yes. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion. Councilmember Palermo.
Motion to move this forward to the next regularly scheduled council meeting, and knowing that staff is going to separately reach out to them regarding timeline.
Thank you. Have a motion, second by Council Members Hills and Hall. We'll say Councilmember Hall, I guess.
Great.
Second the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right. The next item we have on the agenda this evening, item number 3 under Community Development, is consideration of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code to outdoor storage general. That would be Ms. Bromberg.
Yes, sir, thank you, and good afternoon. What I've got up on the screen for you now, there's 2 pieces to this text amendment that Councilor Palermo asked us to bring forward, and this is specifically related to stores like a Home Depot or a Lowe's when they have outdoor storage. And I've got 2 pieces that I'm going to present to you this evening. The first is the use table, and this is specific to looking at Parkway Village and outdoor storage general, which I've got highlighted in yellow for you. Currently, it is not a permitted use in Parkway Village. And so the request is to change it to conditional use, and that would come to council for approval. I'm going to now go to the actual definitions for this to give you a little bit of an understanding of what we're referring to. So the use definition of outdoor storage general is regarding items such as outdoor storage of contractors' equipment, fleet vehicles, but also soil, mulch, stone, lumber. If you've got like a landscape company where you've got supplies available where you can come buy a truckload of rock, pick it up, and take it home. The item that we're looking at discussing is number 1 under the definitions, which is the outdoor storage of contractors' equipment. And I've added in there for sale or rent. So for example, Home Depot rents them out. They may not necessarily be for sale. We wanted to make sure that that was clearly defined. And then the second part of it is regarding the use standards. It would be conditional use, which actually I apologize. I need to update this to include that here. We'll make sure that's corrected for if this moves forward. Is subject to the following. So today, outdoor storage general does have to be screened from the public right-of-way. That is what's labeled as number 1 today. That exists in the code as we speak today. The change would be that we're adding number 2, so therefore I need to number them. Number 2 is that the outdoor storage rental or sales revenue shall not exceed 5% of annual revenue for the store location. And that was what staff was asked to bring forward to you this afternoon for consideration.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bromberg. Councilmember Palermo.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Bromberg. First question I have is, can you remind us all of type C or type D buffer?
Sure, the type C is a 20-foot buffer with a screening wall, and a type D buffer is a 40-foot buffer. And both of those require evergreen plantings at a certain spacing. There's 2 rows of them in the 20-foot buffer and 4 rows of them in the 40-foot buffer.
Yes, Councilmember Hall.
I have a couple of questions. So the item number 2, the sales revenue not to exceed 5%. So I don't see Ryan in here. How are we going to manage or assure that that doesn't, how do we police that?
That's an excellent question. It would be something we would have to figure out how, in their occupation tax license submittal, if this were adopted, we'd have to find a way for them to present that information as a part of getting their business license renewed. Is the only way we could think of that's a reporting mechanism. I'm not sure how we make that happen since it's not part of our current process to ask for that kind of a breakdown in what their revenue source is. They just have sales is the reporting now, so that this is something that we have a question about, is what this might connect to when it comes to that and how we would log it and track it.
How do we monitor the 50-50 rule? Mr. Davidson, do you know? I don't know if that's a Mr. Luckett question.
So they provide an affidavit showing their sales for the month and their alcohol sales.
Councilmember Hall.
Just a follow-up question. So this is a permitted use in CH, and if CH, does CH have to comply with number 2 when you're changing the definition there? Or it's limited use, I'm sorry.
Limited, so that's up to you guys. We were told to adjust the conditional use, and so I apologize that the limited and conditional I even got myself topsy-turvy here on whether you want limited to only be screening or limited and conditional use to be screening and the revenue. We would need some direction on that. Because this use it shows up in 3 different types, permitted, limited, and conditional.
At the moment, my thought is to just adjust it in PV and not adjust it in CH. That obviously, if this passes through committee, then this will be seen 3 more times in a public council meeting, in addition to being seen in a public planning commission meeting. So that's actually where I knew Councilman Vanstrom is out of the state, so I did not call him this week. I called Councilmember Beeson, we played phone tag, but I know she had already knew about this. She had already emailed her support to see this at a committee meeting, and but the whole discussion had always been just purely on affecting PV and not making an adjustment to CH. So I lean towards today out of committee just having the change to PV and leaving CH as it is, but obviously reserving the right, as we always do, to potentially change that at the initiation or any other time deemed appropriate.
Mayor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I would concur with Councilmember Palermo's thoughts on PV. But just a question, maybe you can take us through this a little bit. So 5%, can you kind of take us through the logic of 5%? Why 5, not 7.5 or 10? Or do we, and we're really talking about one location here for this particular use.
There's one location that's expressed interest, and so certainly there's one location that expressed interest. But as for why did I come up with the 5%? It's if you think about the character of the Parkway Village, obviously we already do have a large hardware store in the Parkway Village. We obviously already have a gas station and a supermarket and some different things in the Parkway Village. But I think for the character of the Parkway Village, we do not want an outdoor storage facility that's very much just seeming like, oh, there's the outdoor, storage of rental or sales. And I felt it should be, if we're going to support it or allow it, I think it really should only be if it's really just a small piece. And frankly, 5% is a very, very small piece of what a place might be doing.
Not that that's unfair. Have we talked to this particular potential business that wants to put this in?
We have.
And is 5% an acceptable number to them?
It would work for them.
Outstanding.
All right. Any further questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion by the committee.
Motion to move this forward to the next regularly scheduled mayor and council meeting.
Motion by Councilmember Palermo, second by Councilmember Hills.
I have clarification for you.
Yes,
please,
point of
sir.
clarification.
Bringing forward, as you just mentioned in your comments, the limited use basically does not change. It only has the landscape screening. Conditional use will have screening and the percentage, which is what I've.
Or what's brought forward to council, yes. And in the council packet and the agenda packet, could you also include the picture that describes the type C and the type D buffer?
Happy to, sure.
Thank you.
All right, is that acceptable, Councilmember Palermo, since that
Yes.
was your motion? And second by Councilmember Hills. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, thank you, passes unanimously. Item number 4, consideration of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code to sections 5.3.4, carriage house, and 5.5.2, use table. Ms. Bromberg. I'm sorry.
I'm just driving the screen.
All right, that would be Ms. Diamond. Okay.
Good evening. This is a proposed text amendment to the carriage house section in the downtown house zoning classification, where there'd be 2 parts to this as well. The first part is shown in Article 5.3.4 under the conditioned space to go from 500 square feet to 700. And then in the use table itself is to make the carriage house a conditional use requirement in the DH zoning classification. And Councilmember Palermo did ask us to bring this forward with these 2 changes. As you can see, the letter C up there, to make that a conditional use in the downtown house zoning classification, which is located in the historic district, and then to up the square footage requirement for a conditioned space from 500 square feet to 700. 700 is the minimum that we have in the RS12 zoning classification, so we felt that 700 would work for this location as well. Do you have any questions?
All right, thank you, Ms. Dybel. Any questions? Mayor Wilson.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Councilmember Palermo bringing this to community development, bringing it forward to the committee. I support this potential, one individual applicant's opportunity to present this to the council, and I would support that happening with this one particular applicant. I say, considering back to Councilmember Hill's earlier comments in reference to the overall UDC, I would say continue to work on this on a conditional aspect until the council is ready to deal with this on a holistic perspective. So my comments, to be more, I guess, limited, would be, I support this item. I support it on a conditional basis. I support it for the potential applicant that may be pursuing this, and I support continuing to keep it on a conditional basis.
Thank you. Councilmember Palermo.
I agree, and I appreciate that. So basically, the origin of this is there were some residents that own a property in this zoning type, and with a lot of interest in looking to get a carriage house, and they're not allowed to apply because of the UDC. There's some things that they thought made them think that maybe they could, and then also there was a thought that I could just change it over rule, which I made it clear I do not have that authority, and I'm glad that no mayor or council has that authority. Obviously, we have to follow the ordinances and the code that we have. But that being said, I think there should be the opportunity for someone to apply, and frankly, I think there's a lot of DH locations or situations where I think it would be very reasonable for mayor and council to deny a carriage house use. And I think there's also certain scenarios or situations where I think it could be justified in approving a carriage house. And so I think it's worth the discussion, so that there would at least be the conditional use application. And then, of course, anytime someone requests a conditional use, there's always the opportunity to add restrictions. So for example, you could always add restrictions and just make sure that it's not going to be used potentially, for example, for short-term rental, Airbnb type rentals. So there's always a number of different things that are available, that are the tools that exist when there is a conditional use request. So that's the thought there. So that's on changing this to conditional. Now, can you remind me, Ms. Dybel, on discussion regarding, so I know 500 square feet is very small, and so you had recommended 700 because that was in RS12.
So in the code, under the RS12, that's the smallest classification that anyone could request in our current code, and the square footage requirement, give me a second there, let me go to the carriage house. I believe the square footage requirement for that is 700 square feet.
Because interestingly enough,
700.
not too far from where a lot of our DH zonings are, I remember probably back in 2018 or 2019, there was one literally a stone's throw away, but it was either RS12 or RX, and they had requested the conditional use for the carriage house. I think it was probably RS12, and so that was something the council unanimously had granted, just a stone's throw away from here. But as we get into the square footage, can you remind me what's the square feet of a typical two-car garage?
It's in the neighborhood of 600 to 700 square feet, I think. Yeah.
So-
Around there.
Okay.
But this is conditioned space, so we don't look at it as a garage, as conditioned space.
Right, the reason I was actually asking is thinking, if it's above a garage with 500 feet,
Yeah.
you'd have to have 100 feet or 200 feet, depending on how large it is. That's a deck, or I guess attic type space or something like that. And so I'm fine with us increasing it to 700 square feet as recommended by staff. I'm fine with us just recommending it to having it be 600 square feet. I do think it makes sense to increase it from 500 square feet, just since that is a small amount of square feet.
To 700, right, Michael?
I'm supportive if this committee prefers 700. I'm supportive if this committee prefers 600, but I do think we should increase it, and it should not stay at 500.
Mayor Wilson.
Can I make a suggestion that just trying to keep a little simplicity, since RS12 700, maybe keeping this area as well, 700, just as a consistency.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. I just need a little bit of clarification. So in the UDC, it indicates that carriage house is an approved building type in DH.
That's correct.
And the use table didn't have it.
That's correct.
Is this why we're here?
Yes.
Okay. And second of all, carriage house for a lot subdivided after the effective date. Can you speak to that, why we're not addressing that piece?
So this would be where the lot's not being subdivided technically. Right now, there's a lot that's creative. So let me take a look at what you're looking at. Oh, here.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
I think it's,
Yes, question by Mayor Wilson.
And to the point of the first item for the committee, this is one of those things that would be corrected through the formatting of the UDC.
Yes, sir.
okay, we can add that in. So you're right. If we wanted to, we could add that to the second one below. Currently, it is an existing lot, but if a lot is subdivided after the date of the code, we could add that as well. That way, we keep it the same, if the committee so chooses.
The date of this code would have been 2014.
Correct. So this is just an existing, well, when we look at carriage house, the existing lot, you're thinking the lot of where the property is, so the house or the structure, or whatever's on there at the moment. And then if somebody, and let's say they built one, and then if somebody subdivided after the date of the UDC adoption. So,
I'd actually prefer to keep it as is, as staff had it. No, it's a great question. I'd say for DH, knowing they are typically already pretty small, a lot of the actual properties, I don't want to create any potential motivation for more subdivisions with the expectation of kind of jamming a carriage house in there. Obviously, council could ultimately decide to approve or deny, but I'd prefer it stays with just the existing lot and not subdivided after the effective date of the code. That's my initial reaction. Not married to it, but that's my initial preference.
Councilmember Morthland.
This is probably a question for Mr. Eibel. In the same realm of questioning, what in the opposite direction, if you have a house that buys the neighboring lot and then turns around and says, we want to put a carriage house on that lot, are they required to get a new parcel number on both lots to make that a carriage house? How does that work?
let me get an understanding. So you're saying there's a house on a parcel, they buy the lot next door, and they want to put a carriage house on that. So that would be a lot subdivided after the effective date of the code, or no, it's not subdivided. Hold on, let me see if,
Mayor Wilson, yes.
Two different things, just for clarification. We're talking about 150 to 180 total lots at DH, correct? It's a fairly finite number. So, and to the point is, that's why I think Councilmember Palermo brought up, and thank you, Jason, that this will be conditional. The item we just passed out of committee to go to councils, which is another consideration. So everything will be on your consideration. Every carriage house potential there, you have the opportunity to look at and review. I have a question to go back to item number 2, and I apologize for intermixing this information. So I'm really glad Christine brought up that distinction. So I have a request. I know it seems self-evident, but I've learned in my 61 years of life that everything you think is self-evident is usually not self-evident. So that, for example, we talked about this particular piece. It's in the code, but it's not in the use table. So when this vendor, Kindig potentially does this project, I would like for us to have real clarity, redlined, about those kind of examples. So, hey, it's in the UDC, but it's not in the use table. And so that everybody understands, when the council gets it, hey, guys, this could be a substantive change, and so we have to point this out so that you understand the implications of this. So you got to address that and fix this in this format change. That's a comment, and I
Yeah,
apologize.
no, that's fine, thank you. I want to make sure we,
May I, yeah, if I can.
Councilmember Morthland's question there? Okay.
Well, and I want to make sure, I think what you're saying is if there's an existing single-family lot with a single house on it, and they buy a lot next to them with or without a house, if there's no house on there, you can't put a carriage house. Carriage house is by definition an accessory structure, so you have to have a main house on it. Now, if they bought an empty lot, just to make their lot bigger, none of this is relevant, because they might combine them together, which is not a subdivision, it's a combination, so that wouldn't be an issue. If you have a large lot that today came in and subdivided into two because it exceeds the square footage for a DH lot, and they could make two, they have the right to divide it into two, but neither one of them would be able to put a carriage house on it based on the code used today.
So, in a way, the original thought in my mind was because these are small lots, you have small lot to the left, you have small lot to the right. If you've got something that's a tear down, then lot to the left or the lot to the right, you can then turn around and improve that property with quote unquote a carriage house instead of making it a separate structure. If you were to combine,
Right. You can't put a carriage house on that other lot. It'd have to be combined.
it would have to be
Correct.
combined. You couldn't bridge it with a roof or a walkway or anything like
You
that.
don't allow structures to cross the property line.
Councilmember Palermo.
Yeah, so I just want to state, so I'm not looking to make the change because we haven't heard any specific interest, but downtown houses in our historic district, and a horse stable, non-commercial, I feel like sounds pretty reasonable if somebody did want a horse, similar to how they would have potentially had a horse 200 years ago. But I'm not looking to make that change unless we hear the interest if somebody wants a horse downtown. But on a more likely thing, I just want to say that if someone does request a carriage house, which is a conditional use, it would have to be approved by mayor and council. It would also have to go through the HPC to make sure that it's going to fit in with all the historic guidelines. So that's a part of the process, which is already standard.
All right, thank you. All right, any further questions or comments regarding this item? All right, seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to move this forward to the next regularly scheduled mayor and council meeting and as written.
Motion by Councilmember Palermo, second by Councilmember Morthland. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, passes unanimously, thank you. All right,
Congratulations, guys.
thank
Wow.
you all. And as community development gives way to transportation, item number 5, under transportation, consideration to reduce the priority of the Woodstock Road northbound left turn lane project at Crab Apple Middle School and reallocate the project funds. Mr. Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, good evening. This was a project that was originally put in the city budget just over 2 years ago in the FY22 budget to add a new left northbound turn lane from Woodstock Road into the Crabapple Middle School. This is the relatively new middle school that was implemented or turned on about 3 years ago by Fulton County Schools. There's 2 entrances to the school, and I have a graphic I'll show here just in a few moments. But this project was originally to add a new turn lane to the northern entrance or the bus entrance. This is not the student entrance. That's a pretty modest turn lane, about 150 feet long. It would hold about 5 to 6 cars or the buses that would be turning in there. Earlier this year, we brought this to our Transportation Advisory Committee back in January to seek their guidance on if this project should continue to move forward. And at that meeting, the TAC recommended to abandon the project, was the term they used in their motion. So they suggested we go ahead and proceed with the installation of a new pedestrian hybrid beacon there, which is currently would take the place of the RRFB, that's the rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which is at that existing crosswalk that was installed for the students. Staff have the equipment ready to go to put it in. That's a pedestrian hybrid beacon. Some people call it a hawk signal. That's the new, like the signal out here on Highway 9 from City Hall to across to Canton Street by the Greek restaurant. It's an upgraded pedestrian signal that has the red flashing lights and usually commands better control of the traffic for stopping for students walking to the school. So if this project pauses or times out, staff could go ahead and proceed and put those in. The reason we have not put them in yet is because this project would have to widen the road, and we don't want to invest the money or equipment at that location if we're going to tear it out within the future. So we want to get the opinion of mayor and council at this time. Here's the graphic showing the new middle school site that came online a few years ago. This is the southern entrance. It already has left turn lanes off Woodstock Road, and this is the primary carpool entrance for parents dropping off and picking up their students. Here's the crosswalk location that serves a lot of the students who reside in these neighborhoods. They primarily cross here and walk down a little pedestrian promenade into their school. This is the proposed site of the left turn lane. Would it be from here, and it would taper down in this area, and that's why that crosswalk was kind of a concern. In this area, from what we understand, or from our site visits and talking with the school, is primarily for teacher parking. They arrive usually before the school students arrive, and also the buses come in and turn around here. So this project still has approximately $350,000 in its budget. However, we have some other projects that require funding. One of them is the item we'll be talking next, the next committee item here in a few moments regarding the implementation of construction at 92 at Woodstock and King up near the Roswell High School, and we'll talk in detail in a few moments on that. And if mayor and council approves, this funding could be allocated to other projects. These are by no means requests. These are just suggestions of what we might need money for. One of the other items is some talk about the signal improvements needed down by the river at Highway 9 at Riverside Azalea. We actually have another meeting with GDOT to discuss that more tomorrow. We would need funding for that eventually. And there's other traffic calming and traffic signal needs around the city, and we'll be glad to discuss those with the mayor and council whenever that's appropriate. So we just want to seek guidance if there's a vote to either pause this project, cancel it, or do we continue on its current path to implement this turn lane probably sometime in the next year, year and a half. So I'll yield for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Councilmember Hills.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton. Mr. Cox, I wasn't on council at the time that Crabapple Middle School was built. Did our transportation department have any play in the street there, what we're talking about here, during that, or was that all Fulton County schools?
So Fulton County designed their site, and we have obviously wanted to have two different entrances. That's typical for a site of this size, that has so many trips generated. Most schools will likely have two entrances. They only had one frontage on Woodstock Street, so they put them as far apart as they possibly could. They also installed the new multi-use trail here on their frontage as required by code. On their full length of the frontage, you can see the new multi-use trail here. But they followed our instructions and direction based off our code at that time.
Awesome. Well, what I wanted to say, I had a feeling that was what you were going to tell me. I wanted to toot Fulton County Schools' horn on that because there was so much angst and concern about traffic and kids getting in and out, how they would walk. And we've got great sidewalks in front of Crabapple Middle School and the new one. And, kudos to Fulton County. And the fact that it works so well, we actually have surplus money, it looks like, and I would be in full support of moving that somewhere else. I travel that every single day, and with ease, even with full tilt at arrival and dismissal. So I don't know, maybe I'm missing something, but I don't think so. I haven't heard anything. I went to all of the planning and remodel meetings for Crabapple Middle School, and they're proposing rebuilding on site concurrently with continuing with school with classes for an entire year and a half. So when they decided to move, it's just really exciting to see something come off as well as it has, and it's a great asset to our community. So I would propose to my colleagues that we move that money into a more functional use. Thank you.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, and I agree with Councilmember Hills. Has Crabapple been open 3 full years?
At least two,
Is it two?
possibly this might be the third.
We just completed the third, so well, 2 or 3 years, it's been fully utilized and they're operational. There hasn't been an issue, so I mean, I support moving it.
Councilmember Palermo.
I agree. So I agree with everything that I've heard. I want to also, so Councilmember Hills brought up the great point that definitely kudos to Fulton County Schools for some aspects they did there with how they've been working with Woodstock Road and the sidewalks they built. But I actually have to give RDOT credit too, because RDOT did have a seat at the table, and worked with Fulton County Schools and certainly was a part of Fulton County Schools building those wider sidewalks that are appreciative. And I'm so amazed with how many children are constantly just walking over there to and from the middle school. And I think this makes sense, A, based off of staff's recommendation, along with the RTAC's recommendation. And because especially with that many children all walking, speeding is certainly a concern. You know, there was a situation early on where a kid was crossing Jones and almost got hit. I got emailed from some complete strangers that I've never met telling me what they had just witnessed, and then actually found out it was actually people in my neighborhood that were right there when it happened and all that stuff. So it's pedestrian safety is really important, and an extra lane and encouraging cars going faster right here is probably not the best use of money when we do have other important safety priorities for our schools, et cetera.
Councilmember Morthland.
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Hills. During the time that I was dropping my son off at the school, traffic flowed. And the best piece that I could attribute this to is the police force that was out there from the Fulton County Schools. They were there with lights on. They were in full control as the flow was going. We would come through the backside right there, hit the back circle, come back around, and they held it. They did a really good job of monitoring and maximizing the efficiencies of their parking plan. The other piece is the flashing yellow beacons. When the kids are crossing back and forth across that street, you see them. I mean, they really get your attention. So if we can use this money somewhere else, absolutely, because traffic right there is flowing quite well.
Mayor Wilson?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So Mike and Christine, you guys were on council, and I'm just going to make some huge assumptions because I always want to be fair to the past and what the thinking was. But before I do, recommendation from RTAC, just recommended from staff as well, correct? Or staff's recommending this change as well for the committee?
Yes.
Outstanding.
Pause or cancel the project.
Outstanding. Just in fairness, I'm just going to make a wild assumption here that when this first opened, the school first opened, the traffic is heavy in the mornings and the afternoons like any school. There's a lot of traffic. It's the way I drive to City Hall. So I'm guessing that probably this was a response to trying to deal with some of the traffic, or what? Because I'm very confused actually looking at the proposed turn lane location and where it actually is going.
Yeah, so it was actually proposed, staff recommended it prior to the middle school opening.
Okay. So it was kind of a preemptive thought.
There was some fear about buses not being able to access.
So this just sounds like an easy win-win, and as Councilmember Morthland and Councilman Hills just mentioned, there's a lot of good measures in place and they're working pretty well. And obviously, nobody likes being stuck in traffic, in school traffic, but it is part of the equation when you're taking your kids to school and picking them up. But they're flowing pretty well. Outstanding. And to the bigger point, which you're going to talk about in a minute, I know everybody's going to be very excited about potentially spending money on the Highway 9 turn going on the Riverside. So that sounds like a no-brainer.
All right. Any further questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to not pause, but to cancel. Is that the correct? Yeah.
All right.
To cancel this project.
Motion by Councilmember Hills, second by Councilmember Morthland. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And then item number 6, consideration to approve a construction contract with Summit Construction and Development for an intersection improvement at Woodstock Road at State Route 92 and extension of the right turn lane on King Road in an amount not to exceed $1,205,196.10. Mr. Cox.
Yes, for this item, I was going to let our project manager, Lily Shin, present tonight. This has been her project, so we figured this would be a perfect opportunity to bring it to our council.
Okay, great, Ms. Shin.
Good evening. So this project is at the intersection of Highway 92 at Woodstock Road and then just north of that along King Road. We received 5 bids for this project and we are recommending to go with the low bid. That Summit Construction that you outlined is just over 1.2 million. This project is going to help with that merge lane right now that drops at Walgreens. It will continue that up to the stadium entrance at the high school. And then it is also adding a right turn lane at the intersection of 92 at King Road. And this project was identified prior to 2019. That kind of corridor along King Road is a big safety issue with that merge and actually was identified continually in our top 10 for crashes. And that's kind of why this project got funded. We'll also be adding a multi-use path on both of the segments of this project as well as meeting our stormwater requirements with planters. So this is kind of an overview of what the projects and kind of what is being impacted versus what's out there today. So at the intersection of Woodstock and 92, you can see in the black the new right turn lane there. That will help alleviate that traffic. Right now it's just a through right lane, and it will add that channelized right turn lane with the island, and all of the ramps and all the crosswalks at that state route intersection are being upgraded now, so any future plans for multi-use trails in this area, we won't have to go back to GDOT for permitting reasons. And then on the north side of the intersection along King Road, we originally looked at the high school side to do the project, but there were a lot of utility conflicts and right-of-way, and just it became infeasible, so we looked at some alternatives, and so we will be shifting the lanes over to accommodate that right turn lane extension. And so you can see in the black, that's the only new pavement, and then the light gray is the pavement that would be impacted. The multi-use trail on the east side of the road, and then as well as a new median island should there be any jaywalkers in the area. So like we said, we received 5 bids. We are recommending awarding it to Summit Construction and Development for just over the $1.2 million. We currently have about a little over $1 million in funding, so with that previous committee item, that would help fill that funding gap to get to the bid. We anticipate construction to start in August if this gets approved at the July council meeting, and it would start with the utility relocation and coordination, which can take up to 12 months, and the total construction length is 18 months, which includes right-of-way, not right-of-way, roadway work and the sidewalks and anything like that. Any questions?
Thank you. Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number one, congratulations, Elizabeth. Welcome to committee. We're glad to have you here. I can tell you, speaking for myself, and I'm sure Sparty speaking for the rest of the city, super excited about this project. Can't wait to get this done. I have actually a couple of questions for Mr. Knighton, Mr. Reinhardt, and Mr. Luckett, wherever you are. Because another thing that excites me about your project, Elizabeth, this is one of the most exciting things I've seen in 18 months here on the bid process. Is there actually 5 competitive bids, and all the pricing makes relative sense, and they're all in close proximity to each other. So my question, I thought maybe that was Ryan walking in. Are there other pieces in the current RFP process that we take into consideration outside of just taking the lowest price based upon the current RFP process as it stands? Because the pricing here is relatively close, and I obviously don't know these vendors, you do. Backbone, Baldwin, Excelia, Summit, and Vertical. And my understanding is under the current bid process, we take the low bidder. And that's no. Good.
You take the most responsible and responsive bidder, which is not necessarily the low bid.
Can you elaborate on that some?
So finance and the department that's working on that proposal or qualification, they evaluate all of the proposals or qualifications they get. And that's how our procurement process is set up.
So Elizabeth, don't worry, this is not a question for you, but it is a question. So who evaluates the bid?
The review team,
And the review team is,
which is usually made up of a handful of staff members,
which comes from?
it usually depends on what the project is, could it be transportation or engineering?
Okay, so not finance.
No, finance, the procurement office is part of that.
They run it and sit in on it.
All right, and then, Jeff, this is a request, and Mr. Knighton, this is a request, and Mr. Reinhardt, this is a request. This bid was successfully lit on June the 8th. Fantastic. My request is when we have how long have we been working on this project?
Since 2019.
2019. When we get great news, let's move it forward. Don't wait 3 weeks on committee. Let's have it on the next committee. Move it as a separate item. And say again, Dave, sorry.
Council, you mean?
No, not the council. It's obviously got to come to committee. But like on June the 8th, whatever the next committee meeting
If
is,
it goes off cycle, for instance.
goes off cycle.
We're willing to have it come off cycle to move it and expedite it.
Exactly, exactly. I would like the urgency of our timetables to be more relevant to getting action taken.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this was the soonest possible committee meeting for this particular one.
I'm not casting aspersions.
Yeah,
I would have been happy to have a committee meeting last Wednesday, a committee meeting,
Special call committee
special
meeting.
call committee meeting. Yeah, this is important stuff. And so, great work. Congratulations. I know I'm so excited about this getting done. I know I speak for a lot of people. They've been waiting on this. They can't wait. This is so exciting. And it is really exciting to see a very competitive bid process. However, I will not get off my soapbox about getting very clear on how we make these decisions at the end of the day. I want you to hear this is not for you. This is a purchasing issue. But congratulations, Elizabeth. It's very exciting.
All right, yes, council member, I think I saw Hall first.
Thank you for the presentation. Could we go back to the slide with that graphics? Is there going to be a crosswalk added? We discussed that earlier today about adding a crosswalk.
Are you talking about up here at the top of the hill, by the
Yes.
Roswell High School Stadium entrance? That is not part of this, but that's something staff could look at and implement fairly easily. The only concern that we'd have to make sure is there's a sight distance, because this is the crest of a small hill. That is possible. I just want to review it, vet it carefully so it doesn't violate any safety issues.
Because I understand that students are going to cross, they're not going to go to
Yes.
either corner, and
Very
they're
much
all
so.
going to cross. So if there's a way we can make a safe crossing for them, it would make sense.
We'll definitely investigate that. That would be an easy change to make during this process without delay.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes, Mayor Wilson.
Is that a state route?
On Highway 92, Woodstock Road.
No, on
Roswell
right
is-
there across from the high school where the crosswalk is.
Over here, no, this is a local, King Road is a local.
Who's controlling the speed limit there?
We are.
We
depending on
are.
the Radar permit.
And the
Once that speed's on.
current speed limit is 45, isn't it?
I believe it's 35?
I drove it today. I swear I think it's 45. I was not driving 45 lane. I was getting run over driving 35. You think it's 35 there, Dave?
I can find out in a few seconds.
I did something, maybe I would like to look at the speeds in there as well, to Christine's point, and I think Christine is exactly right. We need to solve for pedestrian traffic in that area, however we need to do it, because it's gonna happen regardless, so we better solve for it. Whether we have a crosswalk or not, it's,
25 is school.
no, go,
Advisory. Don't see one.
come the other way too.
I will. I'm going to go up here in just a second. Let me try if you're
Hardscrabble.
Yeah, coming from Hardscrabble.
It's 35 north of there. I'm not seeing a speed limit sign.
It's unlimited, that's why people.
Exactly.
I will investigate this immediately.
I know this sounds, I apologize for sounding anecdotal. The speed, the traffic was well in excess of 45 miles per hour today.
Okay, all right. Councilmember Hills.
Yes, and, I'm sorry, Elizabeth, is that right? Thank you for clarifying the date, because I wanted to just brag for a minute on my colleague, Mike Palermo. I was with my son right after he graduated from high school and took him to the ribbon cutting. Was it multi-use, we decided? The multi-use trail? And I spoke to Marcelo Zapata and Mike Palermo in the parking lot, just thanking them for being the whipping boys, on the team here for council all the time. And Mike said to me, is there anything that's on your mind that you'd like to see done? And I explained to him the peril of this project and how many times I had been told I was number one, on King Road for driving too slowly and that sort of thing. So this is really exciting for me too in other areas, Mayor, but to see this come through. I can't believe you've taken so long, Councilmember Palermo, but this is going to be a huge improvement. And there have been so many near misses of kids getting hit. There's so many people that come through there that either don't have a kid at the high school, never did, never will, or moved in after, that travel that really frequently, and it's very difficult to be in a frame of mind to watch for kids when you don't have one there, and I respect that. But this will make it so much easier for folks that aren't thinking about kids at Roswell High School on foot, in their own head, and be able to pass through safely. So I'm tickled to death to see this come forward. Timely.
Councilmember Palermo.
I agree completely. So Councilmember Hills has certainly been an advocate for this, both as just an active Roswell resident as well as now an elected official representing, and could not be happier to see this move forward. So Elizabeth, I think just absolutely great job with this. So the one thing is, it's so weird for me to see Publix on the top and Roswell High School on the bottom. I'm thinking Publix always on the left, Roswell High School on the right, for the way I always look at it. But just really excited to see the multi-use trail, really excited, of course, to see the stop of the bottleneck, and to know that it's a top 10 crash location where we also have so many kids all walking right through. And I was one that brought up the benefit and the reason to have a median island there compared to what we have now, so which is not having any pedestrian refuge, because you said if any kids jaywalk, and the kids will jaywalk. And so I'm glad at least that there's a raised median right there. Hopefully also it will slow down some traffic as well by having the raised median, but overall I think this will be a great project, and really glad to see it accelerated.
Councilmember Morthland.
The raised median right there was my question. How raised is that? How tall is that? Is that ankle high? What are we talking?
About 4 inches.
Okay, so very, very small. I was thinking of something that would be kind of waist high with cutouts in the middle to allow people to walk back and forth, but you would also have an opportunity to put something in the middle with the flashing beacon to, as the kids are trying to cross down the road, to actually alert traffic that we're coming through that area to slow them down faster.
If it's the desire of the council, we could explore opportunities to put delineators on the island, add a more of a vertical look. They're just the little sticks, but.
So actually, I think a big part of the new median is better. I think those raised sticks look horrible. And so I just think, so you have the raised sticks, they always get beat up. They always just don't look good after the weather. Whereas in the median, it's slowing cars down and at the same time, I think looking a lot better than those sticks that we currently have.
Councilmember Hills.
Thank you. I'll just add to that, for Councilmember Morthland, that is not a point where kids are running across the street. So many kids, there's limited parking at Roswell High, and certainly not enough for all kids who have a driver's license and would desire to park on property. Publix tows, and Kohl's Shopping Center does not. So kids coming from Kohl's are already on the Roswell High School side of the street. I've never seen anybody crossing on foot down that way. But it could help with the folks merging in and out from the shopping center. But just to clarify that, it's been my experience for many years. They're trotting across where it says new multi-use trail. They're trotting across right there.
Yeah.
at the entrance to Publix on the backside.
But not even quite to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mid-street, just to clarify what I've experienced.
Down the new MIU.
Did the- yeah. And then I guess, Councilman Willie, you want to see a boulder there instead of a median, it sounds like. You want like the rocket Gibraltar right there in the middle.
That would work. The original idea behind that was we're always looking for creative places to put art, and art is always something that slows traffic down. And so I was thinking of putting some kind of sculpture right there in the middle, but you'd have to protect the sculpture by doing something waist high as compared to 4 inches off the ground. You do 4 inches off the ground and your art's going to get run over.
My paranoia with art is, I don't want somebody staring at the art while the kid's crossing in front of them. Yeah.
I would support the sculpture only if you personally did it.
There could be a big hornet right there.
All right.
That's not the worst idea I've ever heard, but yeah.
All right, any further questions or comments regarding this item? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
And Councilmember Mortland is going to work, if this passes out of committee, Mr. Chairman, he's going to continue to work on this median island and his sculpture ideal there in the middle, correct?
We'll see how it goes.
Let you do an ice sculpture in the winter.
All right, motion, was that
Motion to approve.
motion by Councilmember Hills?
I just
Yes,
have
sir.
one clarifying point for the motion.
Yes.
Does the motion need to include taking the money from the project we just vacated, the 185,000 approximately, to cover the funding gap on this? That way but finance doesn't throw a penalty flag on us.
Sure, is
I
that
don't want to
the,
delay the project construction at all.
Are you saying, Mr. Cox, that there's a funding gap?
Yes, that's why we did this project before, the Woodstock Road. We had extra money there.
is that the intent of your
Where
motion?
is Ryan tonight? Ryan, where is Ryan?
It is the intent. Motion to approve and accept the money that has been set aside in a previous item this evening, reallocate the money.
Second.
All right, that was a motion by Councilmember Hills, second by Councilmember Palermo. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, passes unanimously.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you very much. Well, that does conclude the agenda for the Community Development and Transportation Committee meeting for June 27, 2023. We'll entertain a motion of adjournment. Motion by Councilmember Hills, second by Councilmember Morthland. All in favor? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.